Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was arrested this morning by Thames Valley Police on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Court documents indicate that he forwarded confidential British government information to Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted paedophile, on multiple occasions. The material included details of investment opportunities, trade visits to Southeast Asia, Vietnam and China, and the British government response to the global financial crisis of 2008-9. Epstein appeared to gain some form of financial advantage from the exchanges. The files have revealed patterns of greed and entitlement at the centre of the case. Jeffrey Epstein provided Andrew Mountbatten Windsor with what one account described as a never-ending supply of attractive and presentable young women. The charge of misconduct in public office is extremely rare. Prosecutors have handled similar cases involving police officers and prison officers, but the offence carries a maximum penalty of life imprisonment, comparable in seriousness to homicide. An arrest of this magnitude involving the sibling of a reigning monarch has no precedent in modern British history. The last royal to be arrested occurred in 1647. The development sends a message that status offers no exemption from accountability. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has been charged following a significant development in the investigation into the Epstein files. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was born in 1960. Contemporary reports described him at 7 months old as a healthy baby that any proud parents could wish for. The birth carried an element of a fairy tale because he was the first child born to a reigning monarch in more than 100 years. Images from the time showed a young man destined to live in front of cameras who was not camera-shy. One recollection noted a lovely smile. The Queen appeared entranced by him. He was remembered as a beautiful, chubby, laughing baby. He became spoiled by everyone in the palace, not only his mother and father. At the age of 5, after the arrival of a baby brother, Prince Andrew appeared to feel quite senior. Accounts state that nobody ever said no to him. He could do anything he wanted and did so. As a baby, he sought attention. As a child, he sought attention. As an adult, he continued to seek attention. He used his royal status to protect himself on many occasions. One observer described him as an accident waiting to happen for most of his life. A group of people coined the name His Buffoon Highness for him. They described him as rude, arrogant and entitled, though they stated they had not known the depths of his depravity at the time. A royal reporter who first met him in Los Angeles during a royal tour recalled the visit lasted 9 days. The programme of events centred on a UK Los Angeles arts festival. The reporter said he was not daunted by Andrew at the time and behaved in a cheeky manner. On later meetings, Andrew appeared dismissive and rude. The reporter added that Andrew had been absolutely adored by everyone from an early age. This adoration paved the way for him to demand and receive more of what he wanted. A scaled-down version of a James Bond car was given to the young Prince Andrew. It featured machine guns behind the side lights to put bullets in the butler and a jolly, effective smokescreen that should produce some right royal coffee. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was the spare son, second to Prince Charles for 20 years. One account suggested this position had a big effect on him. A frontline royal reporter who encountered him on many occasions described Andrew as a special challenge. Royal correspondents knew he was an absolute favourite of the late Queen Elizabeth, perhaps her favourite child of all. This status gave him an arrogance in the way he conducted himself. His interactions with the public and the media reflected an arrogant man who did not welcome criticism and had little time for other opinions. He was very grand with people he considered his inferiors. There were stories of the phrase, "Don't you know who I am?" circulating at Buckingham Palace in discussions about what to do with him. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor joined the Royal Navy at the age of 18. He was the first of the Queen's children to take a proper job. He served as a junior pilot on a Sea King helicopter. One flight commander who served alongside him on 820 Squadron stated that Andrew always saw himself as a prince before he was a naval officer. The dedication, duty and commitment expected of a naval officer were subordinated to his image of himself as a prince, and he believed he was entitled to. On one occasion, he approached a man who was to become his superior officer. He said he understood the man was to be his superior. When confirmed, Andrew suggested the officer could call him H. The officer asked why, and Andrew replied that it was short for HRH, His Royal Highness. The officer responded that Andrew could call him Sir. Some people had criticised him for being arrogant or offish, but one colleague stated he was simply a member of the crew. He could not operate as a prince while being all princely. He was a pilot first and foremost. In 1982, Britain went to war with Argentina over the Falklands. The Ministry of Defence announced progress in the battle to recapture the islands. The Prime Minister decided Prince Andrew should go. He was sent out on an aircraft carrier. He performed a dangerous job as a decoy, flying helicopters to draw away deadly Argentine missiles. The operations ran 24 hours a day for months. One colleague described the heat and sweat inside an immersion suit as comparable to the tension of a risky driving overtake multiplied many times. Andrew's character held up under fire. He did not falter, he was steadfast. He did his job and did not go to pieces. When he returned from the Falklands War, his mother and sister were waiting on the quay at Portsmouth. He walked down the gangplank with a red rose clamped between his teeth. The homecoming became a huge national celebration of relief and pride. Much of that pride focused on the young Prince Andrew. The war elevated his public image. He was seen as a hero. The press gave him the nickname Randy Andy because he appeared to have many girlfriends, including movie stars and television presenters. One report noted that newscasts seemed incomplete without the latest on Prince Andrew and his current girlfriend, and the film actress Koo Stark. One observer had thought Andrew was simply a bottom pincher and had not realised the depths he fell into. He had every opportunity to succeed in life, but failed his test, according to one view. Everything changed for Prince Andrew in the summer of 1985. His brother's wife, Princess Diana, introduced him to Sarah Ferguson, then aged 26. Her upbringing was impeccable and her social connections excellent. Diana believed Sarah, known as Fergie, would get on well with Andrew. The public loved the story of Andrew and Fergie. One writer described her as a breath of fresh air blowing through the dusty corridors of Buckingham Palace. In a joint interview, the couple sat on a wall. They appeared unable to keep their hands off each other. The public felt they wanted to rip each other's clothes off and get into bed as quickly as possible. There was something wholesome about the pair. They stepped into the sunshine as the Duke and Duchess of York. The wedding was huge. Excitement was high. Crowds came from all over the world. Sarah became pregnant quickly. The couple had 2 children within 4 years of marriage. By the mid-1990s, it became clear something was not right in the marriage. They appeared in love at first, but rapidly seemed not to be. Andrew was away at sea a great deal. Sarah later told a collaborator on her book that they had so few days together. She felt like a widow and had to fend for herself. Andrew was on naval pay, and Sarah earned no money. They lived like millionaires and debt built up. The root of the trouble lay there, according to the account. The marriage ended in divorce in 1996. The Duchess of York emerged from a chalet to speak about the divorce for the first time. She said it was going very well. The couple maintained an unusual arrangement after the divorce. They did not separate fully. Sarah lived at Royal Lodge with her own part of the house, and Andrew occupied another section. They were described as the happiest divorced couple in the world. Around the late 1990s, as his 40th birthday approached, Andrew began to change. He had reached the rank of commander, but was not going to advance to captain. A debate arose within the royal family, and for Andrew himself about his next role. In 2001, he took up the unpaid position of UK Trade Envoy, promoting British trade around the world. All expenses were paid. Prince Charles opposed the appointment. He believed Andrew would exploit the role to pursue personal interests, such as picking up girls and playing golf. Anybody who spent time around Andrew knew he was capable of an extreme lack of diplomacy. The job involved trade diplomacy, yet he received the position. One journalist who accompanied Andrew on a mission and entered the inner circle described him as a loose cannon. He would say the first thing that came into his head, often something ridiculous. One diplomat who observed visits in Bahrain when serving as deputy ambassador at the British Embassy said most people in the Foreign Office were initially pleased with the appointment. The role was simple: shaking hands, promoting Britain and smiling. Andrew often did the opposite. He refused to stay at the ambassador's residence, which was free, and chose the best hotel instead. He brought a larger entourage than expected: a private secretary, an equerry, 2 lady clerks whose only job was to write thank you letters, and a valet who carried a 6-foot ironing board. The valet explained he carried it everywhere because he alone knew how to iron His Royal Highness's trousers. The arrogance and entitlement shocked observers. Staff appeared petrified of him. A few people coined the name His Boofen Highness to describe the visits. From 1998 to 2004, one protection officer covered the palace and royals 24 hours a day. Protection officers accompanied Prince Andrew as they did other senior royals. The officer described Andrew as a very unpleasant person. He could fly off the handle at the smallest thing. He was abusive and swore. His official radio code was Purple 41. He had a nickname among some officers, the Cunt. He upset everyone he came across and was the most unpopular member of the royal family. Other names existed but were not repeated publicly. He was once described as a useful idiot. On his first China trip in 2004, one journalist already questioned aspects of that description. Andrew once said he wished he could have been a plumber and fixed things. One observer reflected that this might have suited him better than the royal role he occupied. Andrew relished travel in the early 2000s. He visited Germany, Doha, Abu Dhabi and Iraq, among other places. There was no salary but expenses could be loaded. He became known as Air Miles Andy. He travelled by private jet. One example involved a flight to Newcastle because no other way existed to complete the schedule. He appeared at events with exotic-looking women. Photographs showed him on yachts. Business deals in the Middle East followed. Questions arose about royal finances. The family lived a circumscribed lifestyle that appeared wealthy by ordinary standards, but felt limited by their own. They sought ways to increase personal wealth and income. The house Sunning Hill Park, given to Andrew and Sarah Ferguson by the Queen on their marriage, had been on the market for £10 or £12 million without selling. It sold above market value to the son of the Kazakhstan dictator. Money from Kazakhstan raised red flags elsewhere but appeared to pass without issue. Andrew wanted money. Sarah Ferguson wanted money. In one incident, she was secretly filmed offering access to her former husband to a reporter posing as a businessman for £500,000. She said they could open any door needed. A female business advisor attended all meetings but never spoke. Her role remained unclear. One description likened Andrew to a hot air balloon drifting without visible means of support. The source of his lavish lifestyle and time spent with rich people raised questions. In 1999, reports emerged that Andrew had formed an attachment with Ghislaine Maxwell, daughter of the former press tycoon Robert Maxwell. One journalist travelled to New York to investigate. Maxwell introduced Andrew to a high-life circle. She organised fun and meetings with influential people. Andrew was seen as lazy and accustomed to having everything done for him. She was not dating him according to some reports, but ushered in new friends, some of whom proved dangerous. Around the turn of the century, Andrew met Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein was an anonymous figure at first. He provided yachts, private planes, parties, young women, posh houses and cars. Andrew was completely taken in. Epstein appeared to groom him. Access was what Epstein sought because royalty could open doors. Epstein looked for Andrew to open riches for him. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor appeared to share confidential information knowingly with Epstein while serving as UK trade envoy. The Epstein files showed he forwarded government documents. He asked for certain documents and received them. Among the requests was help to meet the Libyan dictator, Colonel Gaddafi, who was believed to hold billions in offshore accounts. Epstein asked if Prince Andrew could make the introduction. Andrew responded hours later with the message, "Libya fixed." Prosecutors must prove Andrew acted beyond ceremonial duties and made decisions as a public officer. Other potential crimes remain under examination. The Justice Department in Washington released new documents in a large trove. In December 2010, a journalist received a call from the News of the World. Prince Andrew was in New York and not working. Surveillance began outside Epstein's Manhattan mansion, described as the biggest private residence with 52 rooms. Diplomatic protection officers were present. Many very young women entered and left. One had just arrived from Russia with an Aeroflot ticket visible on her luggage. The next day, Andrew emerged with Epstein and walked into Central Park. They turned right against traffic. Photographer Jay Donnelly ran ahead, climbed a rock and captured the images. The pictures provided the first and only public proof of friendship between the prince and the convicted paedophile. Without them, Andrew might have continued denying any connection. The moment marked the start of his public downfall over the next 16 years. Virginia Giuffre stated she had been trafficked to Prince Andrew 3 times. In London, New York, and on Epstein's Caribbean island, a photograph showed her with Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell. She said the image prompted her to speak because she could not accept Epstein using royalty to rehabilitate his reputation. Court papers in the United States named the Duke of York. Prince Andrew stated in a 2019 interview that he had no recollection of ever meeting her. In the same interview conducted by Emily Maitlis, Andrew denied dancing with Giuffre. He cited a peculiar medical condition that meant he did not sweat. He explained one evening by saying he had taken his daughter to a Pizza Express in Woking, an unusual activity for him. When asked if he regretted the friendship with Epstein, he replied, "Still not." He added that the people he met and the opportunities given through Epstein had been useful. The interview was widely described as a car crash. Days later, Andrew stepped down from royal duties for the foreseeable future. His actions began to damage the monarchy. King Charles initiated a formal process to remove Andrew's style, titles and honours. He is now known only as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. This step was described as full disgrace and largely unprecedented. The reputational damage reached Britain and the royals on the world stage. The Epstein investigation became a global news event and the biggest crisis for the royal family since the death of Diana. King Charles stated that the law must take its course. Witnesses, including close protection officers, security staff, diary keepers, and those handling phone calls, will be interviewed. The palace, historically secretive, will now have to provide greater transparency. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has moved from his Windsor mansion to the Sandringham estate. Police removed some firearms from the property. Princess Anne and Prince Edward have expressed concern for his mental health. Some observers have felt moments of sorrow for Andrew. Others have reminded themselves of the victims of sexual abuse. Virginia Giuffre died and could not take any more. She had been brave. Prince Andrew caused a lot of misery, according to those who knew the details. One person had called for an investigation into Andrew, Epstein, and the sexual misconduct allegations for about 10 years. The Metropolitan Police initially viewed the evidence as insufficient to investigate. Now the case is under active scrutiny. When the state itself is an alleged victim, it moves quickly. But when a woman is the alleged victim, the response has been slower. The developments represent the beginning of a process rather than the end. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor faced a dramatic reckoning. He unravelled with speed. Anger has been directed at him for actions described as morally reprehensible. He has done irreparable damage to his country, his families, and the institution of monarchy he pledged to serve. The Bonnie baby presented to the public in 1960 could not have been foreseen to cause such extensive harm decades later. Each family has a difficult member, but this case has tested the monarchy in unprecedented ways. The royal family has expressed distress because Andrew lied to them and they believed him. They have felt foolish as a result. King Charles has handled the situation in a manner that some have praised as fair while others have questioned its effectiveness. The Epstein files continue to reveal seedy details of entitlement and unscrupulous activity. Andrew used the disgraced financier as a go-between to fix high-level meetings. Both men appeared to want to cash in. Prince Philip had warned his son to beware of seedy billionaires who wanted only to link themselves to a prince and use him. Andrew did not appear to realise the evil involved. He treated the association as jolly good fun and did not consider that Epstein had been jailed for defiling young girls. One freelance journalist in New York at the time of Epstein's first arrest recognised the connection to Ghislaine Maxwell and covered the story. Epstein received a sweetheart deal and served only 13 months with daytime release. The 2010 photograph in Central Park became the catalyst. Virginia Giuffre said she had always refused to speak until she saw the image of Epstein trying to rehabilitate himself with British royalty. She told her story of being forced to sleep with Andrew on 3 occasions. Prince Andrew denied any recollection. The out-of-court settlement with Giuffre in New York in 2022 involved a payment of £12 million accompanied by a non-disclosure agreement. It was intended to secure her silence. The agreement has caused many to view the monarchy differently. Some have questioned whether the institution can retain automatic respect and probity. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor lived a life without real accountability for years. His trade envoy role took him below the public radar at times. He enjoyed getting on aeroplanes and going anywhere. Nothing was too grand. Taxpayers covered huge bills that often involved golf courses, yachts, or luxury hotels. The yearning for money appeared to be a central problem. Financial shenanigans in his orbit have come under renewed scrutiny. The sale of Sunninghill Park and the payment for access allegations involving Sarah Ferguson's have added to the questions. A female business advisor attended events without a clear public role. Protection officers and diplomats who observed Andrew up close provided consistent descriptions of his character. He flew off the handle easily. He swore and was abusive. Staff were petrified. He demanded special treatment such as the ironing board carried everywhere. In Bahrain, he refused free accommodation and brought unnecessary personnel. One diplomat noted the shock at the arrogance. Another journalist who travelled with him called him a loose cannon who said ridiculous things without thinking. The royal family had debated what to do with him long before the Epstein matter escalated. The Falklands Service had once made him a national hero. The return to Portsmouth with the rose between his teeth symbolised pride. The war elevated him into the stratosphere. Yet the later nickname Randy Andy reflected a different public perception focused on his romantic adventures. The marriage to Fergie had seemed perfect at first. The public adored the couple who could not keep their hands off each other. The divorce, though unusual in its continued cohabitation at Royal Lodge, marked the beginning of visible strain. Debt from living beyond their means became the root issue. Childhood indulgence set a pattern. The James Bond car toy, with its machine guns and smokescreen, reflected early entitlement. The Navy years showed a man who placed princely status above professional duty. The superior officer incident illustrated the same attitude. Even in the air, he maintained the royal image. The decoy flights in the Falklands tested his character, and he passed according to colleagues. Yet the attention-seeking that began in infancy continued through adulthood. He protected himself with royal status. Observers who knew him said he brought the consequences upon himself. He must pay the penance, according to one view. The current situation at Sandringham follows the stripping of titles and roles. Firearms were removed from the property out of concern. Family members worry about his mental health, yet the focus remains on the victims. Giuffre's bravery and her death have been noted. The state's slow response to women's allegations compared with faster action when the government is the victim has been highlighted. The investigation continues. Prosecutors and police must establish that Andrew acted as a public officer making decisions rather than performing ceremonial duties. Additional crimes beyond conduct may be examined. No one could have predicted how the story of the 1960 Bonnie baby would unfold. The fairy tale birth led to decades of privilege, followed by scandal that has damaged the reputation of Britain and the royals worldwide. The arrest marks a historic moment. The law applies equally regardless of who you are. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor faces the consequences of actions that have reverberated through the House of Windsor and beyond. The monarchy faces questions about fitness for purpose in countries around the world. King Charles has shown the matter is taken seriously. Transparency is now required where secrecy once prevailed. The palace ecosystem must open up. Witnesses will speak. The full picture continues to emerge. The Epstein files have devastated the narrative of entitlement at the heart of the case. Forwarding government documents, arranging introductions to figures such as Gaddafi, and accepting lavish hospitality all form part of the evidence. The 2010 New York photograph remains pivotal. It ended denials of friendship. It prompted Giuffre to come forward. It led to the car crash interview where Andrew claimed no recollection, cited a medical condition preventing sweating, remembered a Pizza Express visit in unusual detail, and stated he still did not regret the Epstein association because of the useful links it provided. The interview unravelled publicly within days. Stepping back from duties followed. Title removal came later. The settlement with Giuffre sealed a chapter but left many questions unanswered. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's journey from adored royal baby to arrested former prince has been documented through countless recollections. Reporters, colleagues, protection officers, diplomats, and family associates have contributed details. The spoiled childhood, the naval service, the Falklands heroism, the glamorous marriage, the trade envoy excesses, the Maxwell introduction, the Epstein friendship. the financial dealings, and the final legal reckoning all form one continuous narrative. Each element has been preserved in the public record. The facts speak for themselves. The case continues to unfold under the law.